Here are 5 photography hacks you can use if you're just starting out as a portrait photographer. Hello everyone, this is Ernesto with Aftershoot. As you guys can see, I'm in my new office. It's a little bigger than the previous one. And in this video, I'm gonna give you 5 things you can do with your camera and your lenses that are going to immediately get you off the beginner category. Let's get started. Okay, so hack number 1 has to do with your lens. Chances are, if you're just starting out in photography, you only have one camera and one lens, but you still have to be able to produce great portraits with that one lens. Maybe it's a kit lens, an 18-55, f3.5 to 5.6 on a crop sensor body. It doesn't matter, you can still get good images out of that lens. So what I'm gonna show you right now is, when you're going to shoot a portrait, whatever is the first lens you own, you always zoom in as much as you can. In this case, this is a 24 to 50 lens. I'm going to shoot all of my portraits at 50, which is the maximum focal length this lens can give you. That's gonna give me a lot of background separation, and it's gonna avoid me distorting or warping my subject in the wider angles of my lens. Let's show you. One thing I forgot to tell you guys is today I got no model, so I'm gonna be my own model, but that doesn't matter because for the effects of this video, all we need to see is what kind of photos I'm gonna get out of this one lens and one camera setup. And just to show you guys the difference, I'm gonna go and take a portrait with the widest focal length the camera can give me, and I'm gonna take the photo now. As you guys can see, when I zoom the lens all the way in, I get a nicer, more natural portrait, different to what I get when I shoot at the widest focal length the lens will give me, because that is going to warp the subject. It's going to make things look weird, the face, the nose, the ears, the hands. It's just not very pleasing when it comes to subjects. So hack number 1 is zoom all the way in no matter what lens you have, because that is going to give you the nicest portrait. Okay, so hack number 2 is if you want to isolate your subject, means making your subject jump out of your photo over the rest of the elements in your image, always use the widest aperture you can get. In the case of this lens, it is a 2.8 aperture. Some lenses, like I told you, when you're just starting out, if you only have a kit lens, might only go to 3.5 or 5.6. It doesn't matter. The wider, the better, because that is going to give you more subject separation. Granted, not too much if you can't open your aperture too much, but there's something else we can do about that, and that's going to be hack number 3. But for the moment, open up that aperture. Okay, I'm at the widest aperture right there. Now I want you guys to focus on the background. I'm gonna frame myself there. I'm only getting half body shots, so here we go. Perfect. Now I'm gonna show you what would happen if I use f16 just to show you guys the difference. I'm gonna go to the same exact spot, focus on the background, and go. So as you can see, if you're comparing these two images, when I used the f2.8 aperture, the background was blurrier, so my subject stands out more because I'm not focusing on the texture of the back, because the object with texture in my image with more definition is my subject. But when I went all the way up to f16, the background starts getting more texture, starts getting more definition, so it's competing for attention with my subject. Okay, so I have a lens that doesn't open up very much. Maybe it's one of those 3.5 or 5.6 or f4 lenses. How do I get my background to look blurrier if I only have one of those lenses? Well, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna go all the way to, in this case, this was a 2.8, but I'm gonna change it to, let's say, an f5.6. Most kit lenses, those 18-55 on crop body sensors, are only gonna go all the way up to 5.6 on the longest focal length. So I'm gonna use f5.6. I'm gonna balance my exposure, and I'm gonna show you a way to still get your background as blurry as that lens is gonna allow you to get the background. So let me shoot the photo right there. Perfect. So I am, if you can see, pretty close to the background. So if I am that close to the background, there's not much space for the background to become blurry because I am the focal point. The depth of field that aperture is gonna allow me is gonna actually focus or get the background a little more in focus. If I want this to be out of focus, I have to either change the aperture, which I can't with this lens, or stand my subject further from the background so there is more distance from the subject to the back so the back can become blurrier. So let's do that right here. And of course, I'm gonna stand my subject closer to the camera so that there is more distance from my subject to the background so the background can become as blurry as that aperture can give me. If I want the background to be even blurrier, I'm gonna start even further from the background and I'm gonna do it here. And that's what you can do if you don't have a lens that can open up as much aperture-wise, but you still want a nice, decent portrait. Okay, so you are in a portrait shoot, maybe in a park like this one, and the light is kind of changing every now and then, or you're going into darker areas and brighter areas, and you're constantly having to manipulate your exposure triangle. So what can I advise you? What can I tell you that you can do with your camera that's gonna help you out so you can forget about the exposure triangle, but you can still get some decent portraits? Well, my advice to you would be to increase your shutter, especially in a bright day like today, like all the way to 1000, 800, let's see how it goes. And then you can use automatic ISO so that the ISO compensates itself. The camera will decide your ISO depending on the light conditions, no matter how the light conditions change. Automatic exposure settings in your camera, that's just for beginners. Not exactly, you gotta know how to use them and where to use them. So ISO adapts itself depending on where you are, and you just can shoot away without having to concentrate on those things, and then you can become more creative. Let's show you how. Okay, so as you can see here, I got a shutter speed of 1/2000 and ISO 200, and that gives me more or less a decent exposure. It's a little overexposed, but it's just because I was exposing for the tree areas. Okay, so what I said is we can change the ISO to automatic. Let's just move it all the way to automatic. And that way, no matter where I'm standing, the camera is gonna compensate so that the exposure is the correct exposure, and I don't gotta be worrying about my exposure triangle because I've already set my aperture, which is open because I want a blurry background. The shutter, I've pumped it up to 1/2000 because I want the ISO to be able to compensate. And then if I'm shooting at a dark spot or a brighter spot, the ISO is compensating in a way that my photo is well exposed. Let me show you. Okay, so this is a brighter area. I zoomed in, the ISO is an automatic, and now I can decently get up my portrait so that the exposure will compensate because of the automatic ISO. And at the same time, I can go to a darker spot, let's say against this tree. There's not much light coming in here, and I can keep the same exposure settings, but the ISO will be compensating to help me out so I don't have to be changing from settings that I used in that photo to the settings I'm gonna use in this photo. So I'm here, darker spot in the photo, and again. So that way, if you're having trouble exposing your photo because of the pressure, because of the client, because you're just getting started, you can forget about having to change your values every time you go from a darker spot to a brighter spot, because the camera will be doing the job for you. Now, granted, eventually you have to, or you want to move into full manual mode, but automatic ISO is there for a reason, and that reason is to help you out when you're just starting out. Now, another problem a lot of people have when they're first starting out with photography is they don't know if they want to shoot their photo in vertical or horizontal, right? You don't know what exactly to do each time depending on what your client needs. So my advice to you guys is, if you are not sure to frame it horizontal or vertical, always do horizontal. Because worst case scenario, you can always crop that photo back into vertical mode. But if you shot it in vertical, you're probably not gonna be able to turn that photo into a horizontal one. Now, don't worry about cropping too much, because Sensors these days have more megapixels, which means you have a bigger image, which means you can crop in more into your photo. Unless you're shooting photos to be, I don't know, printed on a billboard, you can always crop from a horizontal photo into a vertical one, just like this one. Let me show you. That's it. Thanks for watching today's video. And if you've noticed, every single photo in this video has been retouched with Aftershoot Retouch. If you haven't used it yet, then you're missing out. See you guys in the next one. Bye.